It's totally fine. I have a lot more stories.
That you do.
Yeah.
That you do.
Guilty as charged with the stories.
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to I've Got Something to Say. This is my podcast. I'm Chris Whiting, and this is where I tell you stories that have happened to me throughout my life. Thank you so much for tuning in, downloading, streaming, however you're choosing to listen to it. I appreciate it. This week's episode is called Pulling It Daily. So, when I was in grade school, we went through this humiliating exercise at the beginning and the end of each year. And you'll probably remember this, Paul.
Okay.
The Presidential Physical Fitness Awards. Do you remember going through that in gym class?
I do, yes.
Yeah. What was your take? How did you like the Presidential Physical Fitness Awards?
I did not enjoy it very much. It was a lot of pressure on a kid.
It was. Were you good at it?
I was not, believe it or not.
Okay. Neither was I. And the setup, I think they still do it, but I'm not for sure. But the setup was you would do it once at the beginning of the year, and then you would do it again at the end of the year to see if you had progressed. So I was thinking about this today. Like, I think it was 6 different things that we had to do that we were measured on. Tell me if this sounds right.
You had to run down and grab a block.
Yeah, we did
that.
erasers.
Okay.
So we called that the shuttle run. I think they call it something else now. The 50-yard dash, sit-ups, like how many you could do in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say the mile run, but I don't think it was a mile. I think it was like the 500-yard run, something weird like that.
It was 7th grade, right?
Oh, God, we started in like 3rd grade.
Okay.
Yeah. But it went on all the way up through junior high. The standing broad jump, you remember that?
No.
Okay, you would stand... No running start. You just jump as far as you could go, which cool. I actually was pretty good at that one. Just
okay.
Yeah. Oh, I sucked kibble on the rest of it, but God, that was the one I could do. And then the one that was just the bane of my existence, the pull-ups. You remember the pull-up test?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if it was the same everywhere. The way we did it was everybody sat down on the gym floor, and one entire gym class was the gym teacher just calling people up alphabetically. Yeah. And so the girls had to do the flexed arm hang where they would start at like a pull-up position where their chin was above the bar, and then they just had to hold as long as they could, and they were timed. And then boys had to do pull-ups. Mm-hmm. And it sucked being the very end of the alphabet. So I was always last or second to last in my class with the last name Whiting. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching some kids who couldn't do it, but I was really focused on the Kirk Davises and the Paul Chronisters who'd get up there and they'd whip out, 10, 12 pull-ups, no big deal. And every dang time I would get up there and I would just hang straight armed and just grimace with my face, throw my head around, like run in place in air, just thinking, well, maybe I'll get, a little momentum going and I'll move up. And I just could not do it at all. I was the worst. I was the worst kid. And I hated it and I found it humiliating. And finally, 6th grade came around. So we did it at the first of the year and I couldn't do any pull-ups. And this was my final year. I was like, king of the school. This is 6th grade. Damn it. And I hit my like broadcast news moment of, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. And, I had it.
That was network.
Oh, shoot. Okay. We can edit that. Okay.
I'll edit that out.
Okay.
Don't worry.
Thank you. Yes. Network. Broadcast news. Well, it's in the right genre, I guess. So I committed to myself, I'm not going to be humiliated again come the end of the year. This is it. So I decided I was going to work out a plan, and thankfully we had just a whole bunch of different jungle gyms, monkey bars, as we used to call them. And one of them, there were like 3 tiered pull-up bars. So I don't know if they were pull-up bars specifically. They were bars that you could hang from your knees above concrete because that's what we did back then. But there was one that was maybe just like 6 inches above my head. So I could hold on to it, have my feet on the ground, kind of push up with my tippy toes and just pull. And I got to the point where I could pull myself about 6 inches. So I would do a 6-inch pull, and I would do it one entire recess every day. So I allowed myself one recess to play kickball with the other kids, but the other recess, I worked on pulling it. And then eventually I got to the point where I could move up to the next bar that was maybe like, I don't know, 10, 12 inches above my head. So I still wasn't hanging, but my arms were extended just a little bit more. And I'd pull and I'd pull and I'd pull. And eventually I got to the point where I could crest above the bar on that one. So then I went to the final bar, and this has taken place over months. I mean, I was committed. I've never been committed to anything like I was to getting these dang pull-ups. I was just so embarrassed. I felt like I had to do something. So I moved to the final one. Feet were still on the ground. So I was not hanging all the way, but I got to where I could do a couple from there with my arms. I'm almost completely extended, but there was still a little bit of a bend in my elbow as I would pull it from the big one. So I got to where I could do a couple of those. And then we were towards the end of the year. It was time for the physical fitness test. And I want to say I did well on the broad jump. As I said earlier, that was one that was kind of my forte. I probably just, there's so many things going through my head that I want to say that I won't. I did terrible on all the rest of them. I was always slow on the 50-yard dash, but I didn't care. I'm sure I probably walked part of the way on the mile run, but I didn't care. I'm sure that I didn't do as many sit-ups as Kirk Davis or Paul Chronister, but I didn't care. I had really focused on those pull-ups. So again, as per usual, we're all sitting there on the gym floor, and Mrs. Johnson goes through one at a time, calling us up. It gets to me. It's whiting time. She calls me up, and I really don't know if I can do any where I'm just hanging in midair because I hadn't tried that yet. But I grabbed onto that bar, and I started to pull, and by golly, I did one pull-up. I went back down. I did 2 pull-ups. I pulled it a third time, and I got all the way up, chin over the bar, and I believe that I still had more pull-ups in me, but I was so shocked by the fact that I had actually done 3 pull-ups that I just dropped. I was just like, I'm out. It was like a mic drop moment for me. I don't know how many more I could have done, but I think I had more in me. And I walked away from that thinking, this is a wonderful life lesson. Like, if you really want something, you can work hard and you can make it happen. And I wish it would have stuck, I wish I would have really implemented that throughout the rest of my life. Unfortunately, in every other area of my life, I fell back into what's the least amount of work I can do, and then I'll just throw the rest on hope, and we'll see what happens. But I'm only 50, so maybe there's a chance that this will stick, and the rest of my life will be different. We'll see. But that's it for this edition of I've Got Something to Say. Again, thank you so much for listening. Huge thanks, as always, to the good folks at KCTK Radio. My good buddy Paul, it wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for him and his studio and the production value that he puts into this. Big thanks to them. As always, if you have any comments, feel free to reach out, and I will talk to you soon. I think we've got time for one caller.
Yeah, this is Frank from San Diego. First-time caller, long-time listener.
Not true.
I was wondering, you ever climbed the rope in gym?
I never had to do the rope climb, no.
Yeah, I bet.
Thanks, Frank.